Welcome back to Nerd Wars, and you guessed it, Disney is a gigantic money pit. I'm sorry, an even more gigantic money pit than you even thought. Disney reveals Doctor Strange 2 costs more to make than Avengers 2. Are you... How? Why? What? The budgets have gotten so insane that a lot of people genuinely believe that there's money laundering going on or something. At the least, things are getting overpriced. Hollywood has been spending money like it's the US government. And back when we had like Trump economy and 0% interest rates, you could get away with it. And that's what they did. They're on that high of free money and growth, 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 growth. We got to keep the shareholders happy with us. And then we had lockdowns, and then we had strikes, and now the economy's doing really poor, so people aren't spending money on entertainment as much. The theaters are dying. People like streaming, but it's costing way, way, way too much money, and they screwed it all up, and they're having to go back to basically normal TV, but on-demand streaming version of it. And ad revenue is terrible, and their chickens have come home to roost. Just how much money did they spend when they were drunk on 0% interest rates and DEI? Disney has revealed the cost of 2022 superhero movie Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness surged to a staggering $414 million. What? I never even see it. I just watched Mahler's review. Making one of the most expensive installments in the MCU, even surpassing Avengers Age of Ultron, which was also very expensive. The sequel to 2016's Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness stars Benedict Cumberbatch as the eponymous sorcerer on a quest to stop Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch. Too bad Benedict Cumberbatch shows Doctor Strange is basically a side character, while Scarlet Witch is supposed to be a sympathetic bad guy despite being very, very evil. And then we have America Chavez. You may be asking yourself, who? I don't know. But she's a woman of color, and her moms were lesbians, and she probably killed them. Whoops. We had a star-studded cast, such as finally getting Mr. Fantastic, played by John Krasinski, until he was turned into spaghetti. And Professor X. Yay. And how do we know this? Because when they're in the UK to get all those tax credits and refunds, blah, 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 they have to actually report it. So we actually get to look into the budgets rather than just having to do estimated budgets. Which is probably why we got the random British woman Captain America and Lashana Lynch for some reason. We've got the Marvels at almost 300 million. It just cracked 100 million domestically, if I'm not mistaken. And you got to keep in mind, they get like 50% of this, possibly less, depending on how well it did in China. Or if it even released in China. And then I'm not entirely sure. I don't think this has all the marketing budget. So I kind of made a clickbait. The Marvels lost 500 million, and it was a little clickbaity. It was probably more like 300, 400 million, but now Quantumania is up there over 300 million. Somehow Doctor Strange was over 400. All the portals, Eternals at 300 million. You're asking yourself, Eternals, what? I don't know. Black Widow, almost 300 million. Why? Why? Maybe if you'd released that earlier when you should have, that probably could have worked. What were you thinking? That was the one they did the same day they released. It was in theaters and streaming. And then they had to pay ScarJo for it. Infinity War and Endgame, 1.2 billion. So, I mean, they made a ton of money. But the profit turns out was a bit less than we thought, even on their most successful stuff. Oh, poor Disney. Original Doctor Strange was 230 million. How did you almost add 200 million on top of that? For some perspective, like Godzilla minus one, we don't know what it was, but it's probably around like 12 million-ish. And there we go, original Captain America, 173 million. There you go. How about we try keeping it under 200 mil? Or there we go, the original Ant-Man, 157 mil. Maybe you do that. Also stop making movies that are over 2 hours long. I've been watching a bunch of 80s movies, all the ones I haven't watched and am being shamed and paid into watching. And a lot of them are like an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes. I love it. Movies are so much better just for that because it cuts out all the bleh. You gotta make sure everything put in there is really important when it's only that long. And it would keep the budget down. Which brings us to the actual headline we're supposed to be talking about. Disney CEO says Disney Plus lost $4 billion because it tried to tell too many stories. Too many diverse stories, one could argue. And then you hire diverse directors for the Marvels, and you didn't put enough executive oversight on her. Major issue right now for Iger is their streaming platform, Disney Plus. Don't worry, the Acolyte's about to come on there, which was supposed to be Netflix's main rival in the streaming wars. That didn't work out so well. That didn't that didn't turn out so well. As Netflix keeps gaining an audience, Disney Plus keeps dwindling, having lost 1.5 million subscribers during the last quarter of 2023. So they all bet on streaming, but they didn't realize why Netflix was so special, like why it was so successful. And it's because it had like Friends in the Office on it. They're like, well, we're taking all of our stuff back, we're putting on our streaming platform, but crap, we have to make original content to get people to come over and to stay. All right, sounds good. Let's make a bunch of crap and make it cost over $200 million for a show. Agatha, I can't even imagine how much Agatha, whatever they end up calling it, Agatha All Along. Yeah, I bet that was on purpose. I can't even imagine how much that cost. Or Captain America Brave New World, after all their reshoots, they're doomed. Doomed! Iger says, basically, we invested too much. Yeah, way ahead of possible returns. Yeah, it's already really expensive to do streaming. All the servers, bandwidth, all that stuff is expensive. And then you're going to make $200 million plus TV shows on top of that? And spend $400 million on Doctor Strange movie that he's not even like the main character of? So they're having to act shows and they're having to pull shows that are already on the platform off for tax write-offs. Probably not a good sign. She-Hulk got $225 million to own the chuds. An audience score of 32%. You spent $225 million on it. They lost subscribers and they had to raise the price, and they're going to have to continue raising the price, and they're going to have to put ads. All the streamers are going to have to put ads on everything. We're going right back to normal cable, but at least it's streaming and on demand, which is bringing back cable bundles, but for streamers. Everyone's wanting to go after Netflix. It looks like we're going to probably get like 3 bundles-ish or some grouping up, starting off with like Comcast offering and whatnot, just like how they used to offer HBO or Cinemax. Streaming killed television, and then streaming killed streaming, and it's going back to television. But the ads aren't going to save it. People don't want this crap anymore. They want Netflix, and Max is doing all right. And by all right, I mean managing to break even-ish. Like when Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery said last week that they were going to sell Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max together. Or on Tuesday when Comcast said it was going to bundle Peacock with Netflix and Apple TV Plus. Oh, it's monopoly time. And as all the streaming services cost them so much money and everything's failing, there's going to be lots of mergers. Paramount's doing its best to get someone to saddle itself with its debt. Entertainment has changed, and some of them are finally figuring it out. It's just one of several examples that I've covered. Edward Norton gets it. Linear TV is kind of toast. And it's just about how we've all moved onto streaming and how no one wants to set a schedule. Not even for sports, people want to show up at a certain time. Like YouTube streaming, though, Twitch streaming, people show up. But when it comes to television, people aren't willing to do that anymore. If I was a cable company, I would get ready to be nothing but a broadband delivery company, which is expensive. And then they had to have the original shows, which they spent way too much money on. So it's failing. And then they're going back to TV, which will also fail. And they're just going to keep failing and failing. And honestly, I don't know if they can turn it back around. Even if they got like rid of Bob Iger, put some like Nelson Peltz people in there. I don't think they could turn it around. They might be able to, but not anytime soon. And he talks about how his kids can't even conceive of not being able to watch what they want when they want it. And other celebrities and Hollywood people have come out and talked about this recently. The way we used to consume media is not going anywhere. It's failed. It's dying out, and they're gonna do their best to try to evolve, and they're gonna pull it off. And meanwhile, YouTube and TikTok and Twitch are gonna keep drawing in all the young people. Even just from like a YouTuber perspective, people do not care about Hollywood anymore. People don't give a crap. AMC Network's film boss, so AMC the network, not the movie chain, moviegoers need a re-education to be lured back to theaters. Oh, did I also mention the theaters are dead? Not only streaming, people like streaming, but it's not financially successful unless you're Netflix. Theaters, people don't like the theaters and they're not financially successful. The theatrical and ancillary marketplace has really evolved in real time. We're deep into the re-education of the consumer as they start to come back to theaters. Gary would really, really like that phrase, re-education of the consumer. Well, of course, you got to ask the question, how do you re-educate the consumer? It's not an overnight thing, it's a gradual thing. We sit there and try to figure out what is that tipping point that gets anyone to a theater. People don't hear from one person. There's this movie out right now. You should go see it and say, great, let me pull out my phone and buy a ticket. Fall Guy. The Fall Guy. It's usually 3 to 5 touch points, and we're having to think about what those are. We don't have television ads and newspapers. You've got to figure out how to do it organically, and that's a mix of earned and unearned uniqueness. And he actually has some really good ideas. It's just these special sort of screenings they set up. That's a great idea. Like Alamo Draft House, the sort of stuff they have, that's a good idea. The big, giant, comfy seats in theaters, I mean, that's not what got me there, but they definitely helped keep me there. What got me was the unlimited pass at my theater, because I realized if I got one movie and then you get the rewards you can turn in for popcorn or a drink, I see one movie and it basically pays for itself. So that's pretty much the only reason I go to the theater. But unlimited pass, similar to like the Xbox Game Pass, there's no way that is sustainable at all. But it helps me feel better because then I can see like Disney movies and I don't feel so much like I'm giving them my money, because I see like 4 movies a month and they end up being like $4 or $5. I don't even know how that split works with theaters. It does not sound sustainable. But what my theater has done is bring like anime. We don't have any movies, so they're bringing back old movies. Like I see Alien in theaters. That was pretty awesome. Silver linings. And also tons of Bollywood movies, because there's a bunch of Indians around me. That's what they're going to have to do to survive. These sort of people doing that sort of stuff, they might be able to manage. Disney, they're not going to do this sort of stuff. They hate their customers too much. And it's not just the streamers and studios and theaters. Hollywood are reportedly in shambles, according to one insider. Things are terrible. It basically talks about this guy's alleged actor friend and how everyone is having to go for roles and they're going up against way higher caliber of actors and names that they can't compete against, but there's barely anything coming out being produced. They can only audition for so many things, so all the lesser known actors are just screwed. Hollywood's dead. Are you happy about it? Do you think they can be saved? Should they be saved? Let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe. My channel is under attack. Thanks for watching, and please follow the algorithm on your way out and support the channel by becoming a YouTube member.